What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I got a brand new video for y'all, and it's another fan favorite because I know a lot of people like these types of videos. It's another election prediction video. So I will premise this video by saying that I just want to clarify, I am not a Republican nor am I a Democrat. So my predictions are only based on facts. They're not based on any sort of emotion or any sort of bias. So before you guys start ripping me in the comments like you did in the last one, I think I had like 50 comments that people were just ripping me for having, given it to a certain candidate. Just hold on a second. I'm not part of any side. So we can get into the video, but it's important to keep in mind. I did make my last video, I think 5 days ago, 6 days ago, maybe even a week ago, and a lot's changed since then. I will say a lot's changed, and you will see that in the map. It'll be reflected in the map. I last time I did say Kamala Harris will win the election. Now there's only 63 days left to election day. I think it was 70 last time I did it. So yeah, that was probably a week ago. But a lot's changed. But if you do enjoy this type of content, guys, just make sure to like and subscribe. We're on the journey to 100 subscribers. But let's get into it. Okay. So right away we'll do some of the basic ones that are definitely going to go to a certain party. We already know which ones those are. But what I want to say is that I think a lot's changed in this last week, more in this last week than it did in the last 3 weeks, I would say. So we did see the Kamala supposed, bump from the DNC, which wasn't really one, by the way, and I'll talk about that later. But yeah, so we have seen some things happen that have changed. I mean, Trump especially got the RFK endorsement. I don't think I spoke about that in my last prediction, but I will in this video. And the thing with the RFK endorsement is, I don't think, I do think it's a big deal, but I don't think it's as big of a deal as people are making out to be, because RFK and his voter base already typically took votes from the Republicans. That's a given fact. And the fact that he's endorsed him, okay, fine. Maybe there's some RFK voters who are going to support Trump. But a lot of the RFK voters, you got to keep in mind, they voted for RFK because he's not like the other candidates. He's not an establishment candidate. That's why they voted for him in the first place, or that's why they supported him. So I don't know how this is going to go with them, because I know they not definitely, but they probably don't like the fact that he did endorse Trump. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of the actual results. What I will say is that I did actually expect Trump to get a boost from the RFK endorsement. He didn't really. We also saw Tulsi Gabbard endorse him a few days later. She was a former Democrat. By the way, I don't really think her endorsement is genuine. I think for her it's a bit different. I don't think she's actually a Trump supporter. I think she's just doing this because her bridges have burned on the Democratic side. So I wouldn't really take her word for it, because she's not really a credible source. But nonetheless, it is an endorsement, and it probably, many people did think it would have an effect. I don't think it will. Okay, so now we're left with I'll call it 7 swing states, because North Carolina is now a swing state. So North Carolina, what's important to keep in mind is that North Carolina was not worth as much as it is right now before. And in previous elections, it was not nearly worth this much. Pennsylvania obviously lost an electoral vote. Michigan lost an electoral vote. So North Carolina is sort of in that, playing ground with Pennsylvania, with even like Ohio. It's a pretty big state. So Trump needs to win this. Trump won this in 2016. He won this in 2020 as well, I believe. But he needs to win this time. If he doesn't win it, that could be trouble for him. But if we look at the actual count right here, 226 to 219. So really, Trump has to win probably 3 or 4 of these in order to win the presidency. But I'll be basing this on the election polls that are currently out. So I'm going to base them on 2 polls. One is by New York Times, and then the other one is by 538. So if we're looking at it from a national perspective, I know it doesn't really matter, but we obviously see this, the whole switch. Actually, this isn't the switch. This is August 6th, so about, let's say, 2 weeks after the switch. That's when Harris took control and finally started winning the popular vote. And right now it's 49 to 46, so it's a 3-point lead. Pretty decent margin. We do see that it has been increasing over the weeks. And I do expect it to I don't think it'll go above 50%, but I do think Trump will claw back, and I'll explain why later on. We can start off with Arizona. So Arizona is probably one of those states that many people, again, I keep saying this, many people don't expect Arizona to be a swing state, but now it is after 2020 when the Democrats flipped it. So Arizona is now a swing state. Okay, I don't know why I have to look at this. That's stupid. But yeah, we can just base it on this. So Arizona, we did see Harris winning at one point. It was very close. It is 48-48. I will be basing it on the 538 one. Yeah, again, this is even. I mean, it is 49-48. They say it's even, but Arizona typically does vote Republican, and that's why I tend to lean Republican for Arizona, because usually it is Republican. Sorry about that. So if we're just basically on those two polls, I've seen other polls too. I couldn't pull one up because it had a bunch of ads, so I didn't really want to show that. That's kind of weird. But if we're basing it on those polls and the other things I've seen and the way that it's been trending in recent weeks, I don't think it's out of the realm possibility to say that Arizona's going to go to Trump. Now, I will say, Harris hasn't been doing enough in Arizona. So I don't think she's losing support, but she isn't gaining as much support as she could be. They've been focusing more on Pennsylvania. She was in Pittsburgh yesterday with Joe Biden. They were in Wisconsin. They're in Michigan. They're not really focused on Arizona, Nevada. So I think that is sort of helping Trump because Trump has been all over the country. He's been going all over the place, doing all sorts of town halls. He was in Wisconsin last week at Tulsi Gabbard, doing all sorts of things. He had that rally with RFK, I believe it was in Arizona. So I think Arizona could be Trump territory. And I think based on previous elections, minus 2020, I don't think there's any reason to believe that Arizona will go Democrat again, unless there is some sort of drastic change. What could that mean? Well, maybe if he does a personal attack towards Arizona or does something that's going to disenfranchise Arizona voters, or even if Kamala Harris starts actually campaigning in Arizona, which she hasn't really done recently. But yeah, I do think Arizona will go to Republicans, putting Trump at 230 to 226. Now, Nevada. Nevada's another one that's pretty solid blue most of the time, but now it is trending red, especially since a lot of people have moved to Vegas. It's become a lot more conservative. They have a semi-conservative governor, even though I think he is a Democrat. Or no, the previous one was a Democrat. I'm not sure. But Nevada is another one that has been trending Republican because it used to be pretty blue for the most part. But if we look at this poll, this is August 29th to 31st, Trump is up by plus 1 point. So that is pretty good for him, especially because he has been losing Nevada at times. And this one does not have Nevada, but from what I've seen, Nevada was trending blue for a long time, and it was going to Harris County, or Harris Country, you could call it. And I thought, okay, maybe Nevada's going to go back to blues because, if Arizona's going to go back to Republicans, maybe Nevada's going to go back to blue. But Nevada has been trending red since the midterms. And I kind of predicted it. I kind of expected it to go red eventually. But I wasn't 100% sold. But based on the current polls and the current trajectory, and the fact that Trump is loved in Nevada, I know that for a fact. I've seen a bunch of clips of the UFC fights and, people on the streets. They ask people on the streets, who are you going to vote for in the 2024 election, or who do you prefer more? And the support seems to be pretty good for Trump, pretty solid. So I will give Nevada to him and the Republicans. Now, it isn't really significant electorally. It's only 6 electoral votes, but that doesn't really matter. A win is a win. That's a good start for him. That's 17 electoral votes they just gained right there. So 236 and 226. Now we get to the last 5. So Georgia, Kamala has been doing a lot of stuff in Georgia. She's been doing a lot of campaigning there, rightfully so, because Georgia was a really rare 2020 win. And she is winning in Georgia by 1. Now it says it's tied. I don't understand why it says plus 1. These polls are kind of weird, but it is tied. We're going to base on that. It's tied based on that poll. And then, where's the other one? Yeah, so this one says Trump's leading. So now, you got to keep in mind, Trump was winning by a pretty good margin at one point. He was winning probably 52 to 48, I want to say. 47 maybe. So maybe 5 points. Maybe 4 points, okay? Maybe 4 or 5 points. He's only up by 1. And we can obviously see the gap has been closing in. Now, I don't think that really means much. I do think that while Harris has done a lot of campaigning in Georgia, there's no chance, maybe not no chance, but it's very unlikely that Georgia will go to Democrats again. 2020, obviously there were some questions about voter fraud on the Trump side. I'm not going to comment on that, but I think it's fair to say that, again, these states that did go to Biden in 2020, most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them, Arizona, Georgia, maybe not Wisconsin, Michigan, I'll talk about that in a second, but these two states especially, they tend to revert back to homeostasis. They tend to go back to where they vote usually, and that is Republican. And I will give Georgia to Republicans because Trump has been going to Georgia a lot, obviously. He's done really good with black voters in recent years in Georgia. In general, in the country, he's been doing pretty good with black voters. And they seem to be pretty angry at the Biden-Harris administration. Now, I don't know if that's going to reflect poorly on Harris necessarily, but if they are discontented with the administration, I would expect them not to vote for them. And based on all the polling, Trump is still leading in Georgia. So it would be unwise to say that Georgia's not going to go to him. Next up, we got North Carolina. Again, this is another state, very Republican. I don't know why it's in contention, but it is for whatever reason. We don't have a New York Times poll there, but I have seen some preliminary polling from other sites, and it is very close. It's nearly a tie. Now, what I will say about North Carolina is this. North Carolina is one of those states that you kind of need to win now. And I said this before because we look at the electoral vote. It's 16. That's a pretty significant amount. That's more than Virginia. That's more than, that's almost the same as Ohio. That's more than Michigan, more than Wisconsin. Same as Georgia. So this is a pretty important state. And North Carolina typically does go Republican. Now, obviously, they do have the Democratic Governor Roy Cooper, who was in contention for Harris's VP pick. But I do think, again, North Carolina, why would they vote blue? I just don't see it happening. I think it'll be very close. I think it'll be within a point. But then again, the Democrats' best bet to win the election is through the Rust Belt. And if we look at it right now, it's 226 to 268. So they kind of need to win all three. No, they need to win all three. Because if the Republicans win any of them, I'll show you guys what's going to happen. But if Republicans win any of them, it's over. They win. They win the presidency. So Democrats need to win these Rust Belt states. So I think what they're betting on is they're betting on these Rust Belt states. And I think they're also betting on Georgia, but I don't think Georgia's going to go Democrat based on the current polling. I did say it was a pretty different result last time, but the polls have changed quite a bit. And the reason why Trump has gained so much traction in the last week is because he's gotten endorsed by Tulsi Gabbard, he's gotten endorsed by RFK, and some people are inferring that, Taylor Swift endorsed him. Not really, she didn't really endorse him. But people have also been saying, oh yeah, maybe Zuckerberg also supports Trump. We don't know that yet, but, we could see something like that happen in the next few weeks. Michigan is tied. Michigan is another one must win for the Democrats at this point. They've been making good progress there, and I do think Michigan will go to Democrats. Michigan is one of those states that, again, they say that it's one of those states that determines the election. I don't think it will in this election. I think this election is a lot closer than they usually are. So I don't think it's going to be as great of a metric to measure things on. But I do think Michigan will go to Democrats. Trump was doing good in Michigan when Biden was still around, but he wasn't doing incredibly good. He was doing decent. He wasn't doing great, per se. Wisconsin. So Trump is up +1. That's actually surprising because last time I checked, Harris was up. I think it was +1 or +2, whatever it was. Yeah, +4. This one was +4. So Harris was winning by a bit. And then if we look back, Harris was winning by a lot at one point. So what's happened there? I don't really know. I actually don't know what's happening in Wisconsin. But I do think that interview that Harris had with CNN, I don't think it necessarily affected the polls in Wisconsin per se. But I don't think it was as good as they thought it would be. I think they thought, oh yeah, we'll get a bump around or whatever, the DNC bump, we'll get that. Which, by the way, she didn't get. She didn't get a DNC bump. So if we look at this one, Harris is up +1. So we have one that says Harris is up +1. We have one that says Trump is up +1. What I will say is that Harris is winning by a lot more at one point. I think she was up by 2. She was up by 2 at one point. And the fact that it has gone to 1 point, it's a 1 point for either or. I think Wisconsin will be the closest one, the closest state in the entire election. But if I am basing it based on pure, analytics and predictions, because we don't have the actual numbers. We don't know who's going to vote on election day. We don't know how many people are going to vote on election day. But if we're just basing it on this, the Democrats have been doing a lot in Wisconsin, but Trump has also been doing a lot in Wisconsin. You had that town hall with Tulsi Gabbard last week. So I'll leave Wisconsin to toss up for now. I will go to Pennsylvania. You know what? No, I'll say who I think is going to win Wisconsin. At the current moment, I do believe that Wisconsin will go to Republicans. And that secures the presidency for Donald Trump. Now, we could go to Pennsylvania. We could just take a look at it. This is all symbolic. I mean, it doesn't really matter at that point. At this point, it's just like, how much can you win by? Trump is up +2. Pennsylvania, I've said for a long time, is going Trump. Now, we see here Harris is overtaking Trump. I don't see it. I mean, Pennsylvania was a state where he got where he had the assassination attempt. I just don't see how it's going to go to Democrats at this point. Like, if it was any other state, I think he probably also would have gotten a bump there. Even if it was like New York State, I think he still would have gotten a bump in New York, and maybe that would have been contention if that was where the assassination attempt occurred. But here's the map, guys. I mean, 297 to 241. I mean, this is pretty different from the last prediction I made. And it's important to keep in mind, I'm going to be making these pretty often because Election Day is only 63 days away, so that's, 2 months. We have the debate coming up on September 10th. I'll be covering that as well. So there's a lot going on. People say the last 70 days of a political campaign are the equivalent of 10 years. I think I heard that from a podcast somewhere. I don't know who it was. But that's true. I mean, lots happened in the last few weeks. We saw the whole J.D. Vance, more childless comments and whatever, and then the whole interview with Harrison Walz, which didn't really go that well. We had so many things that have happened, and I only expect it to get even more interesting in the coming weeks. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you do disagree, please just keep it civil. I'm not here to pick sides or anything like that, so just make sure, if you have any opinions, I'd love to hear them, because I don't think that this is set in stone. I think definitely many of these can change. There's many trajectories in which both Republicans and Democrats can win. I mean, there's many different routes they can win in, because there's about 7 swing states now. But, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.